It's Sandra. Welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. So, have you got anxiety? If so, I have an excellent movie review for you right now, which is Inside Out 2. Now, if you haven't seen this movie and you do not want spoilers, please do not watch this video because I am going to reveal a large proportion of the movie because I've seen it today. And I'm also going to be discussing the pros and cons of how anxiety is portrayed from my own point of view as someone who has been diagnosed in 2010 with generalized anxiety disorder. So, yes, stay tuned because I've got a great movie review coming up. But like I said, if you don't want spoilers, please do not watch this video until after you have seen the movie. It's only been out for a few days in the UK. However, if you love spoilers and want to know more, please keep watching. If you don't know who I am, I'm Sandra Bellamy, author of Asexual Perspectives, which is this book, and Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual, 78 Life Lessons to Asexual Life. Don't forget to get a copy of these best-selling books on Amazon. So let's dive into Inside Out 2. What's it all about? And why am I talking about anxiety? So this is the second in the Inside Out movie series, if you like. I assume more's going to come out. And in this second movie, we see Riley becoming a teenager, going into adulthood. So the whole setting of this movie is everything's going along smoothly with her previous emotions that were in the first movie. They're in control of the whole situation of her life up until when she hits 13th birthday. So there's joy, and this is in the first movie. There's joy and fear and anger, and there's also a couple of other ones as well. Joy, fear, anger, and sadness, and also joy, fear, anger, sadness. And what's the other one? Oh, disgust. That's right. So the other one's disgust. And so these are the emotions that have been driving her life since she moved to this new area where she wasn't happy in the beginning of the last movie because she didn't want to leave her hometown. She wanted to stay with her friends where she previously lived. So that brought up a lot of these emotions. Now, in the second movie, when she has her 13th birthday, these emotions are literally pushed out the way. And you see these interesting characters come and destroy the control room of Riley's life. And that's because she's hit puberty. And when she hits puberty, everything changes. And so these new emotions come into the movie. They're embarrassment and envy and boredom and anxiety. So yes, as someone who has anxiety myself, I was really happy to see my emotion in there. And this story is very, very interesting. I actually, in some ways, preferred this movie to the first movie. Probably because it had anxiety representation. But I have to say, I wasn't totally happy with the way they portrayed anxiety. But I'll come on to that in a moment. So the old emotions are pushed out the way, but they're not only pushed out the way, they're kind of banished. And so it's really difficult because Riley is into ice hockey, and she and her two best friends end up going to like this hockey camp where she can become better and end up being, take part in big tournaments and everything. And there's this kind of rival ice hockey group, and this person in charge of it is like Riley's idol. And when she finds out her two best friends are not going to be going to the same school as her, they're going to be moving to another part of the world basically, or another place. I don't know exactly where they're moving to. I can't remember that, but they're not going to be moving and being at the same place as her education wise. She is really upset, but she doesn't let it show. But she then goes, and instead of being with her two best friends, she then kind of leaves them at this camp, and not only leaves them, as in the sense, she doesn't leave the camp, but she leaves them with the team she's meant to be with, and goes to the oppositional team, the opponent team, which is who her idol is the head of. And it's very, very interesting because, excuse me, I have to rub my eyes, sorry. It's very, very interesting because the new emotions, they actually push the old emotions out the way. But before this happens, Joy takes all Riley's bad memories and she banishes them to this place, which is like, it's like a permanent banishing place. And Joy is only wanting the good emotions, the happy emotions, the positive emotions. She doesn't want any bad emotions, any bad memories. So she's putting them up this chute and shooting them into this mound of memories that is like a long-term memory that is not brought to conscious thought by Riley, because she thinks, it's not good to have these negative emotions, and negative emotions have cropped up for Riley. And so she doesn't want them. She's like, no, it's no good. She only needs positive emotions in her life. Right? But it's interesting because Joy is still friends with Sadness. And to cut a long story short, you have embarrassment, you have envy, you have boredom, and you have anxiety emotions and new emotions. And in the end, anxiety, well, I say in the end, it's not the end of the movie, but when the 4 new emotions come in to the control room, in that scenario, out of all the emotions, anxiety takes over, and anxiety ends up putting the other emotions in a jar with some holes in it and puts them in a vault. And the vault has a dark secret in there. So it has like this hooded, weird soul looking thing. And that's got Riley's dark secret in there. It's also got another character called Bluey, I think, which has like a pouch. It's from the cartoon Bluey. And it has a pouch, like a bum bag type thing. And basically in this pouch is like a bag that you can pick things out of to help you in life. And there's also Riley's favorite. So Riley's meant to still like the Bluey character. And there's also this game character, but his character is meant to be deeply flawed. Like, he's meant to be like this hero with a sword, but instead he ends up curling up into a ball and being really slow to knock anything down or anyone down. So yeah, they get shoved in this vault, and eventually the emotions, they talk to all the 3 different things in that vault, and they manage to break free. And there's a really good part of the movie in that little bit where the character of the game, who's always supposed to have been like a loser, they say to him, well, everyone like basically has magic within them. Everyone is unique and they all have special gifts in the world. So you need to show the world your gifts. And so they escape, and the character is quite funny. They escape, but these people come after them. They're supposed to be like part of Riley's mind, I think. And they come after these emotions when the emotions escape from the vault, and they try to put them back in the vault again. But instead, this video game character, he does actually like swirl around, and he's so slow, but because he's so slow, he takes the characters that are meant to put these emotions back in the vault. He takes them by surprise. He ends up knocking like this mop and bucket, I think it is. It's like a handle. I think it reminds me of I think it's a mop handle or something like that. Anyway, the mop handle, just suppose it's mop handle. I think I've got that right, but if you watch the movie, I've not got that right, please post below. So it knocks in to something, one of the characters, I think, and it has a knock-on effect like dominoes, basically. And anyway, they end up in the vault themselves, or a vault themselves. I think it's a next door vault. So they escape, but they can't get back to the control room with with you know with the thing they need to have. So they go in search. Joy says we need to search for the sense of self, Riley's sense of self, which is all these positive emotions. It's like a tree of all the emotions that were currently there, but it's all the positive emotions. Because Joy was getting rid of like the sad stuff, the emotions that made her feel not very good and unhappy, and when things go wrong, that they're a loser and things like this. So it's very much a case of Joy thinks you need to get that back, all the positive emotions, this tree of positive emotions. And it's very clever the way the movie's done, because they show how the emotions are, wired, and how they play out. And so they show how the emotions create new neuro pathways in the brain by, putting the memories in like this sea, and then they create like strings going up to Riley's brain, I guess, and the central nervous system. And so there is a lot of work that's gone into this movie. I noticed in the credits, because I always watch the credits, that there's 3 doctors that they consulted with. There's 3 doctors and another person's name. I didn't recognize that, but 3 doctors have been consulted in this, which I think is good. However, anxiety ends up being portrayed in a really bad light for some of the movie. And so in the beginning, when anxiety takes over, before she pushes joy and the other emotions out the way and bottles them up, she's seen to be, I say it's a she, right? I don't know if it's just known as anxiety. So anxiety is in the control room. Anxiety takes over, which obviously happens in real life. And anxiety ends up being with envy a lot in this movie. They kind of are working together in tandem. And when anxiety takes over, at first, anxiety is seen as a good thing, because anxiety plans ahead, it looks to the future, it wants to protect the person, and it's meant to be a really good planner, planning out all different eventualities. It's got an answer for everything. So I related to this part of anxiety. I related to the part where anxiety people can be very good at planning for the future, very good at planning for every eventuality, very good at having contingency plans. So I liked that part, but they showed anxiety taking over Riley and making her lie, making her envious of other people and making her lie. And that is nothing like who I am. I do not lie. My anxiety does not make me lie and deceive. I don't do those type of things. So I thought that was really bad. I mean, my anxiety is the opposite. If I would never lie, right? But if I even thought about that, it would make me so anxiety induced, because I would be too frightened, too anxious to lie, too frightened and too anxiety induced to deceive, because I know it's going to get found out. I couldn't possibly live 2 lives like that, because my anxiety would overwhelm me. I find it hard enough to cope with one life and the things we have to do in life, and the fears and stuff, and not knowing what's going to happen and change and everything like that. To actually be in a scenario of lying is just not comprehensible to me. I can't even comprehend why anyone would lie. There was some legal thing I had to do a couple of weeks ago now, I think it was, and the person requested some paperwork, and then they said, "Oh, well, you haven't sent this other paperwork." I said, basically, As far as I understand, I didn't have to send any more paperwork in. They didn't require anything else from me. And she's like, "Yeah, but you could be doing this, that, and the other, illegal stuff." And I'm like, "I'm not doing that." Right? In the end, she talked to her supervisor, and as far as I know, they didn't need anything else from me in that respect, right? What I provided was enough. But in my head, I was there thinking, if I would never ever do something like that. That would be classed as fraud and it would be dishonest. And I could never do that. I know some people do stuff, they fiddle accounts, they fiddle different things they do, but I don't do that. I'm transparent to the point I probably tell them too much information, if that's a possible thing. So with my anxiety, I do not lie, I do not deceive. And that's the thing that I didn't like about this movie is they made out that anxiety makes people lie and deceive, and it works with envy. I personally think they should have put fear with anxiety. So I think they should have kept the emotion fear there, and fear should have stayed with anxiety because usually people are anxious. They have anxiety because of fears, not because of envy, as far as I know. But then I don't get very envious. I'm not saying I'm never envious. I'm not saying I never look at someone and think, "Oh my gosh, like look how many followers or subscribers they have." You know, there is one person that sometimes I think, "Oh my god, they got so many more subscribers to me." Sometimes I think that, and other times I just completely forget it. I don't know if that's an actual envious thing or if that's just like a frustration thing or a bit of both, if I'm honest. But usually I don't have much envy because it's like I don't believe in thinking about things I don't have. I believe in thinking about things I can work on to have. And also, I remind myself when that happens, hang on a minute, you've got a different, well, this person is like in the asexual community. So I was going to say you've got a different audience, but I think some of my audience and their audience probably crosses over, and that's okay. There's enough audience for both of us. But also, I make different types of videos for them, and I have to be true to myself. I always remind myself, hang on a minute, Sandra, you're not that person. You're not the same as them. You can't make the same content as them because you're not them. You're a completely different look to them. You're a different circumstance to them. You identify different to them, different gender to them, and you don't make the same content as them because you're not them. So whenever I might feel a little bit maybe envious, I think, oh my gosh, just this person's not you. You can't create content like you don't have to because people come to your channel to watch you because they like you, Sandra. They like the content you produce in your unique way and it's different. And you just put so much content out there. They do less videos. That's why people probably like them because they do like shorter videos, but well, not shorts. Well, they do a few of them, but they do like 10-minute videos. And I know that's quite a popular format, right? But you do the live streams, you enable people to chat to you in real time whenever you want. That's a very unique thing that you're doing on your asexual channel that I don't see anyone else doing. So there's huge benefits. So I just remind myself why I need to be me still, why people watch my content, why there's no point in looking at someone else. You can look at them and think, wow, look what's achievable because they have got more subscribers than you. But you have to realize you're not them. You can't try and be like them. You don't have the same views, the same position in life. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say that's an anxiety thing. I wouldn't say envy goes with anxiety. I would say fear goes with anxiety. Fear is like, oh my God, what if I don't get this book out in time? Or what if I don't complete X amount of books? What if I don't that's more anxiety. Like anxiety is like worrying about an event that's going to happen. Anxiety is like, what's coming up. So I do relate to anxiety in the movie from the point of view they're planning ahead, they're trying to cover every eventuality, they're worried about the future. I do relate to anxiety like that. But I think the line in Deception, I don't like that portrayal of anxiety at all because it makes it seem like an anxious person is just like someone who lies and deceives because they don't have any moral stance, because they can't be unique and different. Whereas I've always been unique and different since being school. I purposely wouldn't get into fights, and I purposely wouldn't follow the crowd. I was more of a loner, more of an outsider, more different. And people knew that about me. That's why I did get bullied, no doubt, is because I was different, because I wouldn't follow the crowd, because I wouldn't do what Riley does in the movie. Riley in the movie choose to betray her two best friends in order to look cool with the other captain of the other ice hockey group that she goes and ends up playing with. And she says things to fit in with her new group, to look cool, to look good, and shuns her old friends away. I'm not that type of person. So I thought that anxiety was portrayed bad in terms of honesty and deception. Is like, I don't lie, and I'm not a deceiving person. I'm not dishonest, and my anxiety would not make me like that. I'm actually the opposite. Doesn't mean to say I don't worry. Like when I was in school, of course I used to get really anxious in school, but because I was being bullied, it was horrible going into school. I got anxious going into school because I was bullied, but I wasn't going to be someone I'm not just because other people don't like it. I never did something to be cool or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? So it just wasn't in my nature. And so for me, anxiety is different. For me, anxiety is the opposite. Like, I'll be so anxious if I did lie. I couldn't even stand it. I can't even comprehend that. I don't know why people do it. So I didn't like that. And I thought, I saw the three doctors that actually had input into the movie. And I'm thinking, where are these doctors coming from? Are they actual doctors? Are they psychologist doctors or what? And so I was disappointed about that. But I did like the fact that anxiety had representation. I did like the fact it showed the good side of anxiety in the beginning, that it can be, it can be very efficient and well organized and thinking ahead and planning, when Joy was seen in the film as like not being a planner, not being organized, not knowing what to do. So yeah, but and then they later showed anxiety completely taking over, and to the point where Riley had a panic attack. I did think it was interesting and good when they did show anxiety. But they showed it so much, but it did look like anxiety was a completely crazy thing. So at one point, anxiety was gripping onto the controls in the control room, and when your body goes into fight, flight, or freeze, well, anxiety was in freeze mode, and it was holding on like this, and it was like couldn't even, it couldn't do anything. It's just like this. But it I don't know, it does look like the person's got some crazy mental problem, but I know that anxiety isn't a mental health problem. So yeah, there ends up being this really crazy thing where it's going like this, and they're just frozen like in time. And then the camera's really good. The people who did the special effects are really good, because you see like this whirlwind just around anxiety, and anxiety can't get out of it. And so in the movie, what's happening in the movie at this point is Riley has actually hit one of her best friends in the ice hockey match, because because anxiety took over her so much, it was pushing her to do better and better, and to make more goals. And so they portrayed the anxiety being good in the sense you can use it for motivation. So you can use it to be strong, to be determined to succeed, to not let anything get in your way. But then they showed the downside of that it can be at someone else's expense. And again, I don't relate to that with my anxiety. I will not be successful at the expense of hurting other people. That's something else I will not do. I won't do that. And so I didn't think anxiety was portrayed very well in that point of view. So Riley hits one of her best friends because the anxiety took over, and she was all about getting the goals and getting the goals. And then so Riley gets sent off, and then she has this panic attack, which is when anxiety's going like this and basically in freeze mode, and she can't get out of it. And so it takes the other emotions who finally get back to the control room. There's like a long story with that of them, having to get the previous sense of self back, Riley's sense of self back, and they come in a pile of they end up in the very end having to pile on top of a load of different emotions, and they shove dynamite up them, they explode, and they bring them back into the control room. Now, there's a reason why they did that. It's very clever storyline. I do think it's a clever storyline. I do think it's been very well thought out. I just don't think the anxiety portrayal has been properly considered. But in terms of like the whole essence of the emotions and what anxiety can do, I wouldn't necessarily agree with the deception and the dishonesty. I'd say that's more, I'd say deception, dishonesty, and doing anything at all costs is more of a avoidant thing, because they're avoiding being close to their friends, if you like. But I'm going into attachment styles a bit here, but there is an anxious avoidant attachment style when they're anxious, and then they're avoidant sometimes as well, but there's no emotion in the actual movie that's avoidant. There's only the anxiety emotion. They put it with envy all the time, pretty much. So everything's meant to be driven by the anxiety she feels being around other people that leads her to envy and making her be so cool and accepted by other people. I was not like that at school. I wasn't accepted because I would not be like other people. I would not change myself in that way to be cool and to say whatever and lie and deceive just to be the cool person. I wasn't. I was on my own and miserable, but I would not do that. And I'm glad I didn't do that. I've always been honest in that way. So I think that's important to know. So anxiety ends up being a complete panic attack, like having this meltdown. And then joy and the other emotions finally end up being in the control room. Actually, sadness gets back in there first, but they all end up being there, and they have to pull anxiety out of the frozen state that they're in, and joy has to make anxiety realize, or does anxiety automatically realize with joy, that I think joy says you've been pushing Riley too hard, and this is what's happened as a result. So in the end, they sit anxiety in a chair and give her some tea or something to calm down. And they said earlier on in the movie that they were going to say to anxiety to put off being anxious. It asks the question like, are you in immediate danger? Do you have to be dealing with this problem right now? And if the answer is no, then you put it off. You put off the anxiety and you calm down, basically. So, but instead of getting rid of anxiety, they do not get rid of anxiety. The old emotions embrace all the new emotions in the end. God, my eyes itching tonight. The old emotions embrace all the new emotions. And so Joy realizes that she cannot get rid of Riley's bad emotions because they all make up the unique person that is her. And if you got rid of all the bad emotions, the bad times, then you would never be the person you are right now. And they show all the emotions embracing in the end and accepting each other. And so that's a very important message, especially for like teenagers, children, the whole adult world, that we need to embrace all our emotions. And when the emotions get put in the jar by anxiety, they're like, oh, we're suppressed emotions. And they're showing that suppressing your emotions is bad. They're showing that getting rid of all the bad emotions is not good. At one point, Joyce says that the anger emotion says to Joy, so anger and disgust and fear all together with joy, and they're saying, do you not realize how delusional you are? And Joy's like, yes, I do realize how delusional I am, but do you know how hard it is to be positive like all the time? It is so difficult to be like that. And so in the end, Joy realizes that Riley can't be like that all the time. and she needs to have the negative emotions still because that's what makes up her personality, her memories, and how she becomes the person she is today. Because if anxiety just takes over and she doesn't have any joy in her life, then it's not going to be a good life for her. But sometimes she needs to be sad and to release those emotions when, like, her friends are moving away from her to a different educational institute. So it's important to know that I presume they're moving away. They're going to a different educational institution. So I'm assuming they're moving as well. But anyway, they're not going to be going where she is. So the whole movie is about what it's like to hit puberty, how new emotions take over your body, your mind, and everything, your life. It all gets a bit crazy, how it's natural to have anxiety, and you can use anxiety to plan ahead, to be well organized, to think of eventual possibilities, but sometimes it just gets too much. Sometimes you have to stop thinking of every possibility and just be in the moment. And you have to embrace every different emotion and accept that because otherwise, yes, you can use anxiety to a certain extent to motivate yourself and be determined, but you could let it completely take over you to the point of view of a panic attack, a meltdown, freezing, and not be able to get out of that loop that you're in. So it's important to understand that other emotions do need to take over, and every emotion has its place in the person's life. And to have more emotions is actually a good thing, not a bad thing. So I think it's a very interesting movie. There is no sex in it, so I really like that. I think it's better in lots of ways than the first movie. It was a more interesting emotional storyline, but I don't like all the portrayal of anxiety in it. So I'll probably give it an 8 out of 10 if I was rating it. But I don't like the portrayal of anxiety with the deception and lying. I think they're way off the mark there, or at least they are from my point of view. I would say person who lies and deceives is more of an avoidant. They're avoiding emotional intimacy. They're avoiding getting hurt. They're avoiding they're avoiding their truth. They're avoiding their honesty. And I think it should have been that fear stayed behind with anxiety. And when they got together, they just caused a lot of trouble or something like that. Do you know what I mean? I think that would have been a better storyline if fear had been with anxiety instead of Emily with anxiety. But then obviously they would have had to create a completely different story. The whole story was because she was envious and had anxiety about the envy, she behaved the way she did. But it wasn't good the way she behaved, and I didn't like that. I didn't like the fact they portrayed anxiety as someone who's dishonest. I have to say I hated that, and I don't think it was fair. So anyway, I'd love to hear your take on the movie. It's very interesting. I remember they said in part of the movie, so if that person has bad memories, will it create bad beliefs in like the future, for example? And so I think it can do that, you know. We make neurons in our brain all the time, and when we have something that happens to us, it leaves memories which can affect us years later. That's part of what the movie was actually showing as well. But we can always make new neuro pathways. We can always create new memories and create new neuro pathways, and that is true in life. So I'd say the pros of the movie is it's great because it embraces all different emotions. It's great because it does show the benefits of anxiety in the beginning. It shows the fact we plan ahead, the fact we are well organized, the fact we like to think of every eventuality can be a good thing, and they show the bad part of that because in the beginning, like anger and fear and disgust, they're saying to Joy when they're asking Joy different questions like what you're gonna do, Joy doesn't have the answer. They're always like, oh well, anxiety would have the answer to this, anxiety would know the answer, anxiety would have planned this by now, anxiety would have been organized by now. So it's all saying that anxiety is better. And so in the movie, it is saying that anxiety is better until it gets out of hand and puts too much pressure on the person. So, you know, there's a lot of pros to watching the movie to show the benefits, things like they didn't just show the bad sides of it. But I think for me personally, the cons of this movie is it makes anxiety look so bad that if you saw the movie, you'd probably think that every person with anxiety is a completely crazy freak or something, a completely crazy person who can never hold it together in intense situations and is a liar and is dishonest. Well, that's not me. Well, yes, you might think I'm a bit crazy at times, fair enough, but I'm not dishonest and I'm not a liar. And I think the craziness looks like they're really mentally unstable. And I wouldn't necessarily say every person with anxiety is mentally unstable. I would say that anxiety affects them, but I wouldn't say they're mentally completely unstable. So, yes, I think obviously from an asexual point of view, if you like no sex movies, that's a huge pro to this movie. I think it's good that they show what it's like for suppressed emotions. I think it's good they show what it's like that all emotions are valid. You can't cut out any of the emotions because if you did, then that person wouldn't be who they are today. I think it's good because they show you that you can create new neuro pathways in your brain that can be good or can be bad. That can have that, so it does affect you. It was interesting to show that past memories can create problems in the future or present with your beliefs. It was good to show that puberty and the extreme emotions you go through during puberty is not your fault. It's like they take over your whole body. You've got no control over it whatsoever. And you're just like got these emotions all over a sudden pop up that you weren't aware of and didn't know you had. And they're just bursting out of you and there's nothing you can do about it. So I think that's very good for teenagers because I think teenagers get a lot of stick from, oh, you shouldn't behave like that. But when you do hit puberty, it can be really difficult to deal with all those emotions that you're not used to. And I think that's a very well portrayed thing in the movie. I wouldn't have personally put envy with anxiety, like I said. Maybe fear could have gone with envy as well as fear could go with anxiety, but I wouldn't have put envy with anxiety. I would have put fear with anxiety and made a storyline out of that instead. So I think that was a bit of a mistake, but overall, I did think the storyline was good. I thought it's very clever the way they did it. I thought it's good that they got all the things in there about the good points and the bad points about anxiety, but I think there's bad points that I wouldn't agree with. I don't think I don't know. I can't speak for other people, I guess. I don't know if people with anxiety, just anxiety, lie and deceive. I know some people with avoidant personalities can lie and deceive because they're avoiding the truth. That's very common, unfortunately. I know anxious avoidance could possibly do that as well, but I don't know how many people with actually just anxiety, which is what that emotion was. It was just anxiety. It wasn't avoidant anxiety. Then, yeah, I'm not sure from the people who just experience anxiety if they lie and deceive. Be interesting to do a poll on that. But unless you know the individual person's attachment style, it wouldn't really work because people who are avoidant can also have anxiety. They can be anxiously avoidant. But if it's just a person who's anxiety induced and doesn't really have the main trait of avoidancy, then it might be different. Like I think everyone probably does avoid some things like conflict. A lot of us avoid conflict. But I'm very direct with my needs. Like in a relationship, I will tell the guy, and even in a dating bio, I will say exactly my needs in that way. Like I don't want sex, don't want marriage, don't want kids, and things like that, which apparently people with anxiety tend to avoid even saying those things. But I don't. I'm very direct like that. So I think it's important for us to accept that everyone's an individual, but I don't like the fact that people portrayed anxiety that way in the movie because I'm like, well, I have anxiety. If someone doesn't understand anxiety, they're new to me, I say I have anxiety, they'll think of the movie and they'll think of this person who's deceiving and lying and who, looks like they're completely having a completely mentally insane and unstable. And that's not what I am. I now have mental health difficulties sometimes, but I'm not mentally unstable. I personally wouldn't say. Not the crazy in that way. So I think that doesn't do anxiety justice. And I think if, there could be a lot of problems with people actually admitting they have anxiety when they see that movie, because people might think they're liars and deceivers. And I wish they hadn't done that, because that's not fair. I have anxiety, but I'm not a liar and I'm not a deceiver. In fact, I really can't stand those things, and it would make me anxiety induced even to think about being like that. So yeah, that's what I have to say on the movie. What did you think of the movie? If you watched it, did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you think fear should be with anxiety instead of envy with anxiety? What did you think of the whole anxiety storyline, especially the deception and lying part? What did you think? I'd love to know. Embarrassment was a good character. I thought embarrassment was quite spot on. But what did you think of that? Anyway, love to know what you think. Post it down below in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. Grab your copy of Diary Confessions of a Hyper-Romantic Asexual, 78 Life Lessons to Ace Your Life, the best-selling book. And Asexual Perspectives, also a bestseller. And Fibromyalgia Self-Help Handbook. If you like superhero movies, you'll love this autobiographical account of how you can reduce your pain in 25 aspects of your life to have more energy and be happier in your life. Even if you don't have fibromyalgia, less pain, more energy, feel happier. Lots of love. Grab those on Amazon now, and I'll see you soon in the next video or live stream. Lots of love. Take care. Bye. Subscribe, thumbs up, and hit the bell icon. Lots of love.